Welcome back, Devils fans, and this is a special week. We are about to embark on our Western Canada plus Seattle road trip. A big one for the boys. I'm calling it do or die because I feel this could be the make or break trip of the season, coming off that catastrophic loss at home, 6-3 to San Jose. Absolutely horrific outing for the boys. Very depressing, but hopefully we get on the road and we could galvanize. The troops could rally and we could show something on this road trip. We are in desperate need of points. We are coming up on the new year, and it's time to claw back. We're a little bit behind as far as where we wanted to be at this juncture of the season. Tons of injuries. Dougie seems like he's gone for the year. Not going great, and it's time to get some points. Let's take a look at the upcoming trip. So we have Vancouver tonight, at Seattle Thursday. Then Saturday, we're in Calgary, and Sunday, we are in Edmonton to face the Oilers. So we're playing 4 games in 6 nights on the road out west. It is going to be very important that we get out to early leads, hopefully, and we don't come out flat and looking like we're asleep and then have to claw back from behind on the road. This team really, really needs points. And it feels like, to me, like I put in the title of the video, or the thumbnail rather, do or die. If we lay an egg on this trip, I think that could be a really hard mountain to climb back from. Let's take a look at where we currently are in the standings. So if you take a look here, we're currently in 7th place. It seems way worse than it is. A lot of people tell, oh, look at the Devils. They're 3 points out of last place, and they're in the basement. But the reality is we are only 4 points out of a wild card spot. 4 points out of a wild card spot with 4 games in hand to the Lightning. So I'm not that worried. We have the games in hand. We just have to now play catch up and get points with these games at hand. And then we're only 5 points out of third. We're only 5 points out of third in the Metropolitan, trailing Philly. And they've played 25 games, we've played 22, so we have 3 games in hand on them as well. I am not hitting the panic button yet. I am not super worried. I do think this team will right the ship, and we will be just fine, and we will be a playoff team and hopefully go on a nice run. But this is a crucial juncture of the season where we have these games at hand, and now when we're playing the games to catch up with the condensed schedule, 4 games in 6 nights, we need to get wins, we need to get points. And now let's take a look at the teams we're going on the road to play, how they're faring currently on the season. The Vancouver Canucks are the highest scoring team in the league and are currently in 2nd in the Pacific with 33 points. They seem like they're built to contend now, and they're going to have a great year. They could possibly be in the race for the President's Trophy for most points in the league when we get to the end of the year. They should definitely be, I would imagine, in the race in the final month for sure, along with a few other teams. And then we look Seattle. A lot of these teams, again, the parity in the NHL is very real. There's not a huge margin between bad teams, mediocre teams, and good teams. And with the loser point in overtime or shootouts, there's a lot of situations for middle-of-the-pack teams and somewhat bad teams to kind of hang around in the standings. And when you look at Seattle, they played 26 games. They have 22 points, but they're only 5 points out of a wild card spot as well. And so they're going to be desperate. They're not giving up on their season yet. They still believe in themselves, I'm sure. And they're going to be desperate for points just like us. So there's no easy wins in the NHL, right? So when we're going on the road, we're playing hungry teams. Then you look at Calgary, similar deal. They have 23 points. 4 points out of a wild card. They're going to be hungry and looking for points too. They just traded Zadorov away. I don't know how we whiffed the Kevin Weeks rumor that we were in on Zadorov. They traded him for nothing, so I don't know if there was a situation there where Calgary did not want to retain any of his salary, and so the Canucks took on his full salary and cap hit, which may have been a deterrent to Fitz. That would make sense at the time. Now, had this all happened a week or two later, and Dougie's now on LTIR, and that money's freed up, that may have played a huge role in us being more aggressive to get someone like Zadorov. But I expect now, when the Dougie money gets freed up, for Fitz to use that elsewhere, hopefully for a defenseman and a goaltender. But I would have really loved to see Zadorov. It sucks that we missed out on him, but we'll see what Fitz has up his sleeve in the weeks coming up. And then you look at Edmonton, a little bit worse off than the other teams, and people are writing them off early. But in the end, when you have the best player in the world, Connor McDavid, you have Draisaitl, their goaltending has been absolute dog shit on the season, but they have 19 points. And so, again, people have written them off, their season's over. All it takes is a little 4 or 5 game win streak to kind of creep right back into the thick of things. And so I'm not writing anyone off. It's super early in the season, and these teams are going to be hungry to win in front of their home crowd. No one has thrown their hands up and said, our season's over, and that's it. No, we're still very early on in the year. These teams are going to be clawing, and these games are going to be a dogfight, and we're going to really have to show some heart and mettle when we go out there and get these wins, because these teams are playing in desperation mode, just like we will be, to try to get back into the race. And now we're going to take a look at Vancouver. You see their points leader, JT Miller, followed by Quinn Hughes, Pedersen, Brock Boeser. They have some weapons. You know, there's a reason why they are the highest scoring team in the league and why they're in this where they are in the standings. They have a nice roster. Demko and net, a lot of people in the past couple of years have talked about that was a guy the Devils should have went after, but I don't think, you know, any of these legitimate starters are just being traded away by their GMs. But here's the guys to watch in the Vancouver matchup. And we'll take a look at Seattle. Vince Dunn with 21 points on the year. Bjorkstrand with 20. McCann still hanging around there. Schwartz. Matty Beniers coming off a nice rookie season. Seems like he's struggling a little bit with 13 points, but you know that's to be expected with some of these young guys. You can't immediately expect superstar seasons, and we saw that with Jack. It took him a couple years to really find his groove, and now he's emerged as one of the best players in the league. So sometimes it just takes some time with these young kids. And we'll see Calgary. Here's a look at Calgary's lineup. Their leading point scorers: Lindholm, Huberdeau, Kadri, an old friend, Blake Coleman. Blake Coleman is a guy I would love to have on our current roster. He got a nice contract out there, and his cap hit is prohibitive from us having him now. But he's a nice depth guy that I think brings a lot of heart, soul, and energy into a lineup, and I think he would have fit amazingly on this current roster we have today. It's a shame that he was here a few years before we were really in this position. Miss Blake Coleman. He was a great player, and he seemed like a great guy as well. Really liked Blake Coleman. Fan favorite in New Jersey. And then we go to Edmonton. I mean, everyone knows Edmonton. You have Connor McDavid and Leon Draisaitl, two of the filthiest players in the league. Anytime you have those two guys on your team, you should be in the game, and for the long haul, you should be in the playoff race. They, like I've mentioned a couple seconds ago, their goaltending has been absolutely atrocious, has cost them games. Similar situation to our beloved New Jersey Devils, and maybe that's something that they look to address in the upcoming weeks as well, and they said enough is enough, we need to right the ship. But who knows, it could get ugly there quick in Edmonton. Yeah, if McDavid's not happy being on a loser, he's already been in the league for a while now. How much longer does he want to stay there in a losing culture? It's all very interesting. I've heard conversations about people speculating if Connor McDavid were to leave anytime soon, how would he be viewed by the Edmonton fan base? It's all very interesting stuff. But I do believe Connor McDavid is the best player in the league, and I think Jack could be the second or third best player in the league. But that'll be an exciting matchup anytime we get to see the McDavid and Hughes show. He's two of the best players in the league. Always a matchup I look forward to watching. And now, if I were Lindy and I had my way and I could pick the starting goaltender for each game, there's 10 games remaining in December. And this is how my split would look. I would start the road trip tonight with my man Akira. I'm going right back to him after that last game. He didn't play a great game. The team didn't play a great game. I'm not trying to rattle this kid's confidence. I know Vitek's not the guy. I'm coming back with Akira tonight against the Canucks. And then I'm going right back to Akira again on the 7th in Seattle. 2 days later, I'm starting Akira again in Seattle. And then it's basically a day and a half or so it's not the full 2 days. So we go from the 7th at night to an afternoon game against Calgary. I'm giving that one to Vitek. I'm giving Vitek that game. It's the first of a back-to-back. And then I'm giving Schmid the next day, 10th against the Oilers. So I'm going with 3 out of the first 4 games I'm going with Akira. And then when we come home on the 13th against Boston, I'm giving that to Akira as well. I don't want him to sit for too long in between starts. And as I've said previously, I think we really need to give him this little chunk to really, truly assess where he's at and what we have in him currently as of today to figure out if we need to go get someone right away, whether we need a bridge-type goalie who could help mentor Schmidt and maybe play some games while the reins get handed over to him fully, or maybe we need somebody more of a legit, bona fide number one guy, and Schmidt will play in support of him. That's what we don't know and what I'm looking to ascertain with this next chunk of games. So I'm coming back to Schmidt on the 13th. That's still 3 days in between starts. And then on the 16th against Columbus, first of a back-to-back, I'm giving that to Vitek on the road. And then the 17th, second half of the back-to-back, I'm coming back to Akira. 2 days later, at home against the Flyers, the 19th, I am going Schmidt. Had an absolute gem of a start in Philly last week. 44 saves on 47 shots, stood on his head, stole the game for us. Luke wins an OT. Amazing game. Akira won that game for us single-handedly. And then on the 21st, 2 days later, that's going to be another Vitek start for me. I'm going to give Vitek the nod against the Oilers. And then on Saturday, the 23rd, I'm going right back to Akira against Detroit. And so in my ideal world, I am giving Akira Schmid 7 of the next 10 starts. And that, to me, will be a sufficient body of work and a true audition for the bona fide number one goaltending spot in New Jersey, and to truly assess where he really is. He's 2-1 in his last 3 games, and this will give us a nice little roadmap of what he's capable of. I think 7 of 10 is not crazy. I'm sure I am overly optimistic, and we will see Vitek Vanacek more than 3 of these 10 games. He might play 4 or 5, or who knows. If he plays a great game, maybe they ride him 4 games in a row. At this point, my guess is as good as any. But it seems like Lindy is trying to give Akira that nod, give him the confidence, and see what he could do. 7 out of 10 games in December. That's what I give Akira Schmid. Let's see what you got, kid. And we'll find out how this goes on in the upcoming weeks. And now, looking back at last season against these 4 clubs, the Canucks, Kraken, Flames, and Oilers. We played them 2 times apiece last season for a total of 8 games. Let's see how we did, and my God, did we fare well against these clubs. We went 7-0-1, getting 15 of a possible 16 points against these teams. It's crazy that it was actually this. I remember this trip vividly. The Western Canada trip last year was over a year ago. It was actually 13 months ago, to be exact, where we beat Vancouver 5-2, then we beat Edmonton 4-3, we beat Calgary 4-3 on the road, then we played Calgary at home and beat them 3-2. Then Edmonton at home, we defeated 5-2. That was all those games on the left side there. Those were all part of the infamous 13-game heater, which was one of the most fun times during a regular season in my memory of being a fan. The team just found a way to win night in and night out. A 13-game winning streak it may never happen again in Devils history, honestly. Winning 13 games is something to be said. But yeah, that whole left side there was part of that 13-game heater. And then for good measure, I'd be remiss if I didn't mention, we also beat Montreal on the road, Toronto, and Ottawa. So we had swept the entire Canada road trip. And I believe it's only been done maybe one other time in NHL history. I forget, but it was some crazy stat. And then we look at the rest of the games. The only loss against these clubs last season was a 4-3 loss to the Kraken on January 19th of this year. And I remember that game vividly as well. Nico tied it up late in the third period, and then we went on to lose. But very exciting game on the road as well. And then we finish up here. February 6th, we beat the Canucks 5-4. And we beat the Kraken on February 9th, 3-1. So obviously past success is not an indication of future success. But looking at this, wow, we really did well against these teams last year. 15 of 16 possible points, going 7-0-1 is absolutely phenomenal. I am hoping for anywhere near that against these teams would be really something. But the way I'm looking at it is this. This is my potential report card for the Devils on the trip. 8 out of 8 points are up for grabs, 4 games, 2 points apiece. 8 points are on the table for us to claim. Obviously, if you get 8 points, A+. I'd be lying if I sat here and said I expect 8 points. I mean, that's kind of crazy for anyone to just expect that. But very hopeful. 8 points, you're an A+. That would be a phenomenal road trip. 7 points would also be a very, 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 very good road trip. And 7 points would earn you an A on my report card. 6 points would be a solid B. 6 of 8 points is B-worthy. And that'd be a decent trip for the boys. 5 points is a C. 5 points is almost, to me, 5 points is the minimum amount of points we can get on this trip. 5 points is mediocre, but we didn't play ourselves into a hole. 5 points to me is the basement of what you should expect. And then 4 points is a solid D. If we only get 50% of the points on the table, that's a D. And 3 points or less is an F. You've failed the mission, and you've put us further in a hole. I am hoping for, realistically, I'm hoping for 6 points. 6 points on the trip, whether we go, 3-1. 6 points, you could also go 2-0-2. That'd be very weird. 2-0-2, probably the most unlikely outcome, but that would get you to 6 points. But either way, I'm looking for a baseline of 6 points on the trip. Can live with 5. Really want 6. And anything more than 6 is obviously stellar. It would be a stellar trip for the club. So, in closing, the road trip starts tonight. The Hughes family media circus. Hopefully we kick it off with a big win. Hope we see Akira in net. Should be exciting to see how the boys come together on the road. Hopefully we start gelling as a group and we get these wins. Let me know what you guys think. Am I a lunatic? Who do you guys think we should try to get in any potential trades? Who do you think should be in the net? What are your thoughts on anything Devils related? Let me know in the comments. Love talking to you guys. Love talking Devils hockey. As always, like, comment, subscribe, and all that jazz. Let's go, Devils.